Welcome to the InfoTech Growth Partner Podcast, the podcast where the future of IT unfolds, and we dive deep into the pertinent developments in regards to IT and data with leaders and experts in the IT consulting field. My name is Jasper, and today I have the distinct pleasure to have Martin Knook from Gomocha on the show. Martin is the founder of Gomocha, and it's a great honor to have you on the show, Martin.
Thank you very much, Jasper. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. So I'm really excited about this conversation, and thank you for having me. And
Yeah, awesome. I'm looking forward to the conversation as well. We already know each other, but maybe it's good for the audience to get an insight into your own background, which is very extensive. Give a little bit of insight into what Gomocha does and what your role within the company is, of course.
yeah, let me try to run through the three questions here, Jasper, one at a time. I have a background as an entrepreneur in the IT business since 1992. That's really where I started my first company, literally in the kitchen of my parents' house. They were not overly excited about my activities, but that's how I did it, and built multiple successful IT companies over the years. Have been involved in totaling 13 startups. That's really what makes my heart beat faster. Starting with not a real good idea, but then shape it in a way that it turns out to be a true value proposition for a specific niche market. So being involved in those, done a few successful exits. Of course, there are a few that have not been only kind of easy to develop, and a few that have not been successful. But really looking back at a nice trajectory. And also Gomocha, me being the founder of Gomocha, that's 100% true. It's a spin-off from another company that had too many, basically diverse kind of focus. So there was a small team, not really having a focus on a value proposition. And when I had a chance to restructure that, I basically created two companies out of that one company. And Gomocha has kind of owned the intellectual property of a field service mobility platform. And we have been turning that from a perpetual license model into a full SaaS enabled platform that our customers are using worldwide. And with that value proposition, we are able to scale that operation and build careers for the people in the team. And my role as CEO of that company is really to oversee that operation. Gomocha is structured in a true global setup. So we have a distributed leadership team. My COO is located in Utrecht, the Netherlands, and my CTO is located in California. And I'm sitting here in Washington, D.C. So we're basically seeing each other face to face, really once a quarter. And it's really fantastic to have 10 years of experience with Gomocha doing so. So, kind of remote working for us is not an event that happened 4 or 5 years ago. We do that already for a long time. And our success is mainly built on that because we have a very distributed team. So I plan strategy, set short-term objectives, long-term objectives, communicate them to the team, and ensure that, we're kind of having a balanced growth. We're a fully bootstrapped company, so we have no private equity behind us, and running our healthy operation here with growth numbers that I'm proud of.
Wow, that's a very interesting story, and I really enjoyed also what you're saying, that you have been working in companies that have a very diverse focus and not really focusing on a specific value proposition, and that is actually something that I really believe in as well. You cannot be everything for everyone. You should aim to solve a specific problem or a specific set of problems for a specific type of company and person within that company. So in that sense, I think that is definitely a very good way to start with when you run a company. One of the topics I know you are you really enjoy talking about is actually revealing the hidden inefficiencies or efficiencies in technology and IT. And I think that's also under discussed as well. Like everyone is maybe focusing on the first couple of things that really technology and IT can do, but there's a lot more to it downstream. And of course, a lot of people are looking for efficiency, looking for ways to do things better, easier, faster, especially also in the areas of technology and IT. But what we really see and what you really saw as well is the really natural resistance of people to change. Like people want change, but don't want to change themselves. How do you see that clash of focusing on efficiency, but with that, making sure that people actually do it and actually change to get those efficiencies out of it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a huge topic, of course. So we can go in many different directions here. But let me keep it really close to what Gomocha is focusing on. But before we do that, we with Gomocha we reveal hidden efficiencies, and the first thing is, why do we say hidden efficiencies, and why do we not call it inefficiencies? It's that we want to trigger the positive thought instead of the negative thought, right? So it's a subtle difference, but we have had lengthy discussions about why is it reveal hidden efficiencies. It's because it triggers that positive thought, and I think there is so much of that psychological effect if you want to implement changes, that many managers, in particular in larger organizations, they just don't spend the time on what's the right wording and what's the right impact of the change, because everyone is looking for efficiencies. So as a second thought, the only reason to digitize a process is efficiency, right? So we have not invented computers to do unique tasks. We have invented computers back in the day to, automate repetitive tasks. And that's another thing that I think we focus a lot on, is not to focus on the change, but on the fact that boring, repetitive tasks can be made easier. And in my experience, none of my customers is interested in doing boring, repetitive things. So by just shedding a light on, efficiencies, and, repetitive tasks can be automated, the quality of those tasks can be improved. And with that, it leads all the way up. If you continue that whole chain, and I don't want to go through every little step, but it goes into a better performing business in the end. So there are many steps to make. And with that value proposition, we approach the market of field service, which has a little bit of a different difficult challenge to it, because when you think of computer systems, we're all connected with our laptop or our desktop computer. But those people that are out there in the field, they have not a wired connection or a Wi-Fi connection or a computer constantly in front of them. So you have to organize basically a whole different experience for those remote workers, because they're driving their car, they have a truck or a van with their inventory, and they're concerned about providing service to the customer. So that whole digitalization is just a small portion of their work. And yet there are a lot of inefficiencies in their day-to-day practice. So I don't know if you want me to go into, too many examples, But one of the kind of major benefits that a technician, which is remotely almost disconnected, and of course he has a cellular connection to get data and information, to know the inventory of a van truck from a colleague that works 25 kilometers away from him, and to help his customer, he needs that particular part that is in that truck 25 kilometers away. That's a huge efficiency. So that's where you can kind of short cycle the whole kind of logistics of that, because maybe they can team up for a lunch, meet halfway, have some fun together, exchange that inventory piece, and then fix the problem at the customer. It's a very simple, down to earth example, but it's a real life case that many of those field workers are struggling with on a day-to-day basis. There are many more, but this is just one simple example that speaks to our imagination easily.
Yeah, and this specific example that you mentioned is actually a very good example of something very simple in essence, because it's about understanding what is in the van, whether that specific part is in the van, which is pretty simple for someone actually to go into the van and check whether it is there. But again, that takes time. Those people cannot be effective or efficient even. So that is a specific example indeed that you mentioned that is simple, but downstream, those hidden efficiencies of that can be really big. So that's a very good example that you shared. And I would definitely want you to go into some other examples a bit later, of course. Going into this, you mentioned, well, we're working with mainly companies that are in the field service space, people hands-on, doing specific tasks, not really directly having access to internet, whatever, or a device even. When it comes to efficiencies and getting those efficiencies, getting that change within these businesses, how should those companies approach that and balancing that, the fact that people don't want to change really, but they want efficiency? How can you make sure that you balance both of those things in order for the efficiency to be effective?
Yep. Key thing here, I think, is collaboration within my customer's organization. Mm-hmm. And where there's a big discussion about centralized and decentralized operating models for global companies running those field service teams in many different countries. What I think built a resistance from scratch, if there is a corporate standard that everyone should adopt to. And this is where I think I pride my technology team that we have built a kind of a platform that allows you to create a corporate standard because you need to have certain data points from your operation to compare and to track performance. And so there is always a need for a corporate kind of standard. But the way you should implement that is to give it a local flavor. And to determine that local flavor, talk to the people that are doing the work. And that's what where I see the kind of success comes in, when collaboration within teams are kind of smooth, and the organization is wired for, an individual technician with 20 years of experience maintaining assets. He's not necessarily interested in a digitalization process. He's most likely he will see it as a threat. But when you can listen to his day-to-day inefficiencies or his day-to-day repetitive tasks, it's a better approach, then he might open up and starts to see kind of, hey, I don't have to do this when I allow that local flavor to support this particular need here. And, obviously, and I don't want to make it too much of a promotion here, but the Gomocha platform allows you to create from a master set of data points to make subsets on top of that that allow the localization for a team. And by design, we have been thinking about that as a tool for larger global operating organizations. But it turns out that my customers that have more a regional function, they have different business models. And exactly the same applies to that when you have two different business models with customers, contractual obligations are different. You probably need different kind of data points to track performance or to, live up to your contractual obligations. So we kind of use it on a larger region scale, but also on a smaller business case level. And so the ability to do so, that's one success factor, the recognition of the need for that. And second is really get people involved, because I think, and I truly believe people are not against change, but they need to understand change. And if you focus on that, and if you make people believe that it is a better way of working, everyone will adopt. And that's where the onboarding team for Gomocha really focuses on, and make people aware. There's a lot of technology here involved, but maybe one little example here, Jasper, to how we actually deliver that. Our platform is a no-code solution, and we invested really significant in making our configurations so flexible that if you want to make a change, so let's call it, we need additional data points, or we want to provide additional information to a field worker because he needs that. There's no coding involved. It's really new functionality is distributed with the ease of logging in and logging off. No, logging off and logging in again, and the technician will adopt the change. And I think that's the third component there that works to it is don't make a change a large event. Just do small incremental steps. Allow the organization to grow with kind of the next level of maturity, so to say. I don't like the word in context with customers because they say, "What, am I immature?" Nah, it's not what I'm saying, but it's like helping them to really kind of grow into new capabilities.
Yeah, and especially what you mentioned on the fact that people need to understand what is the value of this change, or what really I think the sentence is, what's in it for me, what's in it for them specifically. Like there can be a director, there can be a manager that says, well, we need to find efficiencies here, you need to change this. But as long as the people, the actual hands-on people, don't understand what's actually in it for them, how it will make their work easier, then they will not, or at least the change will not last. Maybe with some help, they will change on the short term, but people will fall back into their habits and doing the things that they find beneficial. And also something, I got a quick insight into the Gomocha platform. Of course, I haven't seen all of the capabilities. And what you mentioned as well is that it is low code, which makes it pretty easy to configure. But at the same time, it's very sophisticated, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. So I think that balance is a very good way to approach this, especially in working with those field service workers who are focused on their main task and don't want to be too much involved in actually changing their platform and those types of things. They just want to focus on their work. On that note, and I know you mentioned you have a lot of examples. Are there any other examples of transformations that you did with clients, working together with them, maybe even specific business value or quantifiable results that came out of those transformations? Something you can share there?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's take a different angle to field service for an example there. I've been so far focusing on the remote worker. But there is, of course, a team at the office that needs to prepare the day-to-day and respond to customer concerns or plan regular maintenance or response to IoT events that can come into our platform. That there is a certain level of coordination of work required, so that's another part of operating a field service team, particularly if it's a larger kind of group of people, 200, 400 engineers. It comes down to a most efficient way of scheduling. And one of the, I think, really nice efficiency gains that we have found is that one of our customers had a global carbon dioxide ambition, to really kind of part of their environmental responsibilities to say, let's optimize the travel time for our technicians in a way that we reduce carbon dioxide emissions. And we have a module that's called Scheduler that can kind of, have a mathematical kind of model to it that can optimize those aspects. And in the ideal world, you will just say, hey, if I have someone going from A to B, then that's my most efficient route. But there is a lot of complexity to it because some of those customers have a certain window of service, so they're only available between 8 and 10, and some of those customers require, or assets that their customers are running require certain skill levels. You need to know where those kind of individual technicians, where they reside and what their working schedule is. So there are a multiple of aspects on top of that before you can even look at the most efficient, the lowest kilometer or mileage to travel, and still have an operation that makes sense. And I'm smiling a little bit because this was really in the early days. So this is about maybe 9 or 8 years ago, where we didn't truly had enough experience, or let's say we didn't ask all the questions that we needed to ask to run this optimized schedule. So, consultants of Gomocha, they took the data and they were creating a schedule for 12 months and they optimized based on mileage. And we deployed that model. Everyone was happy at management level. And then the next day, basically, we had almost a strike of the field engineers because we could bring them the most effective and efficient way to the location, but definitely not the right person, definitely not at the right time, definitely not with the right equipment and everything there. So it was not that bad as I kind of mentioned here. So it was in a test phase. Of course, it was not real operations. But we learned from that inefficiency and efficiency is a balance between all those kind of characteristics of your business. With the more sophisticated analysis we did after that first experience, we have presented 7 different alternatives to find the most optimum. And before we deployed that to production, we basically had a well-informed conversation with management of that customer saying, hey, listen, there are different options here. It really depends on what you prefer. So the characteristics, I can't go into the details of that, but the characteristics of each scenario were detailed out. And at that time, the efficiency gain was coming from 2 aspects. Basically, the working hours were reduced, which was an unexpected outcome. And the carbon dioxide reduction was not fully matching the corporate ambition, but definitely coming close to significant contribution to that objective. So so it was driven by one parameter, a business need, and then we found basically an efficiency gain in labor cost there as well. But just doing that analysis. And that was a really nice example where, in the end, the numbers added up to a significant win where everyone was really happy with.
Yeah, that's a very good example, I think, of those hidden efficiencies in you're trying to solve one thing, or at least you're thinking you're trying to solve one thing, but there's a whole lot more to it than only that single parameter, and there's a lot of downstream, things that have to change, things that change, and things that should happen. So that's a very, very, very good example.
Yeah.
From that, taking that, I think we've discussed quite a lot about hidden efficiencies, which is very relevant. Of course, I want to dive a little bit deeper into your own background as well. You've been in the IT space for more than 30 years already, is what you mentioned. Participated, sold, started a lot of companies in the space. Some more successful, some less successful, is what you mentioned. And that's, of course, also something that I really am is in my heart, let's say it like that I'm doing every day, helping businesses scale, helping businesses grow, helping them find their way to growth to the next level. From your experience, and I know this is, again, a pretty broad question for you to answer, but what do you think is the key to building, growing, and having a stable IT organization?
Yeah. Wow. There are many aspects there. I think really. Let me start with I think no one really decides to be the founder of a company, but you will kind of be called the founder of a company when there is recognition of that value proposition. So I think that's something where I want to start. You never are being positioned as the founder of a great ID, but it starts there. You need to be passionate yourself as a founder, as an individual, or in a team. And I've done both, where I was the leading individual on a value proposition, but also worked with a team of 4 or 5 people that were passionate about that value proposition. And that's where I think it really starts. You need to not be passionate about the potential outcome, but you need to be passionate about the problem that you're going to attack. And I think if you're able to program yourself like that, right? If that's the right way of saying it, but you kind of dedicate your time and your thinking capacity and collaboration skills to that. That's for me, I think, number one to be successful with a building company phase. And there are many different difficult aspects to it, but because you have to hire your first, your team member, you have to have your failures, you have to have your successes. One of the things that will differentiate failures and successes from each other, I think, is really to keep the focus and start as early as you can. Define your ideal customer profile. Who are you selling to? And you probably don't know, but allow yourself a bunch of assumptions and, trial and error, and, have your champion challenger approaches and do all these kind of things almost at the same time. Not too complicated, very simple at that very, very early beginning, but you need to kind of develop a very clear profile to who you're selling your value to, and where does it resonate. And I'm not going to give you examples here, but I've by experience target totally wrong audience. But luckily, I found out after a couple of months running around, achieving nothing, and then with a simple change, to that target audience, all of a sudden I was successful. So the 3 months of talking to the wrong people did something very good because it matured my story about that value proposition. And as soon as I found the right audience, it started to fly. So everything you do there will help to build that value, the enterprise value in the end of a company. So that's my kind of, I think, Jesper, my first kind of set of kind of what I think I've been learning the hard way in the first years, and what I'm doing now based on that experience. And I think that really helps. So that comes to building and just never give up. No, there is no giving up. And if you give up, then you have to accept your losses. But it's just it requires a lot of energy and determination to be successful. Most people don't see that. My friends never appreciated my hard work on the initial stage of a business, but they always celebrated the exit of a business, right? So it's I will never call it's lonely because I think that's not true. You have to collaborate, but it's definitely you're on your own. I think that's the quite common notion that I see many of the people that I'm working with today have as well. So this is about building, right? Is that you want me to go wider and deeper, or
Well,
it's the first
well,
stage, right?
yeah, yeah. Let me tap into that because a lot of things here are really resonating, especially also with the people that I'm speaking with on a daily basis. Is they have a great idea, they have a specific problem they want to tackle. They started somewhere because they found a need. They talked to someone who needed someone, and that's where it started. And they grew that business. Something that you mentioned that is so important is getting to speak to people. And you don't know the first couple of people you speak with, you don't know whether they are the right person, you don't know whether they have a need, but start there. Start talking to people, start understanding their pain points, their challenges, and see what can I do for them, or is my service, is my solution, can that be of help to them? If not, pivot, find other people, find different markets, different types of people, different job titles within a company.
Yeah, yeah,
But start there, because that's really where the insights are. Like, there's only so much research that you can do at your desk, but get out there, talk to people. That's a very important one, and something that that we double down on with clients as well is starting there, getting to speak to people. I know you wanted to dive into the next stage, so go ahead.
yeah. No, what you're saying is research. That's being seen as so. My definition of research is definitely you need to kind of you need to study the space, right, that you're in. You need to know, you need to be kind of informed, you need to talk the business lingo, you need to kind of know the challenges and problems. But research is also talking to a potential customer. It's part of the research. So don't separate them out like, oh, I know enough. No, you're constantly researching, in those dialogues, and you learn every time. So it's so much fun if you kind of allow yourself a little bit of that kind of integrated approach there. Yeah, and then building out and growing a company, where there are so many successful entrepreneurs that all have their own trajectory, right? So there's not one path to success. One of the things that I found very interesting and that I've learned a lot about is that there are, I think, in essence, two type of entrepreneurs, so to say. One that is much more equipped to work with venture capitalists, private equity, kind of scaling dynamics, and the type of entrepreneur that likes to have a bootstrap business, and both can look at each other like, hey, that's the wrong approach, or hey, that's a simple approach. They don't always have respect for each other, but I think they're both very respectful, different type of entrepreneurs. But there is a fundamental difference between those two worlds. If you want to grow your company more based on money and impulses and over expending and almost into a kind of fake it before you make it kind of approach, not disqualifying that model. It really is a fruitful and successful potential path forward. You're focused on different aspects of the business than when you're building a bootstrapped business that potentially grows a little bit slower, but maybe a little bit more sustainable. Totally different aspects are being managed. I've been involved in both. Personally, I have my own preference after having seen and learned those things. But I think if an entrepreneur wants to grow, you need to really spend a lot of time on figuring out what suits you best. Because in both models you can fail because you're just a different type of person and you're in the wrong model. If there are two models, right? I think there are more, but in general, I think these are two different approaches. So I've learned it, by doing it, figured it out. But I would really say, if you know how you want to grow and understand the consequences of the different trajectories that you can kind of go into. So let me focus on my preferred model, which is the bootstrapped business model. It's because I like to be really close to my customers, to my team members. I want to really know not all the details of the business, but I want to understand how the organization functions. Because I am wired the way that I can have most influence by knowing and then building up on that aspect of it. Growth. It's just focus on just one thing. It's like it comes down to deals. Everyone needs to be dollar oriented. Not that dollars are the only thing that matters, but growth comes with money. In that bootstrap model, it's really you need to balance the growth and the cost levels of your organization with the revenue and your portfolio of opportunities. So their focus really on a healthy and wealthy system of sales opportunities. Get your marketing established. Don't overspend. There's so much digital marketing possible for a fraction of the cost of 30 years ago, where everyone was on television and billboards. Don't do that. Just do digital marketing. It's really a very effective way of reaching out to your audience. It's a very crowded place as well, so you have to do something unique. But that's where you can work with experts to help you, but focus on capitalizing each opportunity. That's really where growth is coming from, and we can turn and twist it. We can optimize it. There are many different aspects. What is your pricing model? Are you offering too low? Are you offering too high? Most of the cases, you're always too cheap. So it helps you to increase your price at times, which will help the whole ecosystem to flourish and grow a little faster. And what I personally believe is that you have to build a core team of functions. So marketing, sales, onboarding, customer success, all those kind of functions need to mature over time. But it's very helpful, and I'm not saying that because that's your model, Jasper, but it's very helpful to have outside expertise, just making sure you're not sitting and going into a tunnel vision with your own organization. So I do have a bunch of those people around the Gomocha team that are just challengers, and sometimes one single remark can just say, wait a minute, are we that stupid? No, we're not stupid. We were just, we just had the wrong focus. So refocus and go back to what makes sense. And I think I think that's really a key to accelerate growth, and be successful in a very competitive market. Um, and I think what's really important, and I see, no, I don't see many, but I see sometimes the tendencies to not focus on a niche, and to think like, oh, there is some money I can earn here and some money I can earn there, and then giving up on your niche markets. I think that's the worst thing you can do. It's really believe in your growth trajectory and focus on that niche and make it work. Just make it work.
Yeah.
And yeah, then a business will grow.
Yeah. And there's so many good points that you touched upon here, especially the one of the last one, focusing on a specific niche, because that has so many downstream benefits on your business. You talked about pricing. If you can solve a specific problem for a specific type of company and a specific person within that company, that is so specific that you can charge premium prices for it because you've solved that problem over and over again, and they will have the trust that you can do it for them as well, and that there's a clear ROI for them in there. At the same time, it makes your delivery more repeatable because, as I said, solving the same thing for the same type of person makes it internally way easier as well. And one important thing as well, start with just building that pipeline. Like the people that you speak with today, I would say 98%, 99% will not have a need for your services right now. You have to be lucky for someone to raise their hand today and saying, well, let's start tomorrow because we need this now. But because this industry is heavily based on relationships, just talk to people. Just understand their needs, just understand their situation. At the same time, of course, you can share what you do as a company, what you have done in the past. And from that, keep in contact with those people. Keep sharing interesting things with them up until the point that, for example, 6 months from now, they will say, well, we had a very good conversation with Martin 6 months ago. They clearly have the expertise for the specific thing that we need right now. So let's reach out to Martin again and let's talk to them. So those are some of the most important things that companies should consider when they start building and start scaling a business. Not focusing on we want to do everything for everyone because then we can attract all of the people. In that specific niche market, there's way more people that you can actually service. So focus on that part and only work with those types of people. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, your triggered a thought there is that, when you build a sales team or you're building a sales team, the default, no, yeah, the default evolution will be like, oh, our sales cycles are taking 18 months. And I'm so much of a challenger of that whole idea. I think sales will never take 18 months. It's planting the seed and then nurturing them. And then your sales starts really when that customer shows an interest. So defining your buyer's journey, and know when you're just developing interest. It's not sales, you're developing interest. And when you have kind of a business case and a value proposition, that's where kind of sales starts to ramp up, and a good salesperson can close a deal in 2-3 months. And so don't get confused in all the kind of natural tendencies that people in the industry have, and they do that with the right intention, but know as a leader exactly where the opportunities are, to plan your business, because otherwise you kind of get sidetracked on that. So yeah.
Exactly. If there would be one thing that I would want to share with those, in this case specifically IT consulting companies and with the leaders within that space, is just start speaking to people.
Yeah.
that is really where the money
Yep.
is. That's from that you can really build your business. And again, most people will not buy from you, but speak to people, build the trust, and test the ideas that you have, instead of just throwing
Yeah.
it into market and see whoever will react.
I was in a workshop here in Dallas with, what was it, 18 entrepreneurs, startup entrepreneurs. And most of them were telling the audience, hey, I'm an engineer, I'm a technical resource, I'm not good at sales. Okay, so stop. It's like sales is not the art of, it's not an exclusive right for people that have that title. It's everyone can sell something, particularly when you're passionate about. So I cannot echo more. Talk to people and promote your ID, and you will be surprised how easily it is to close a deal in the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
funny.
I know
Hey
we can
Jasper, I
keep
don't want to jump into conclusions, but I have a next meeting, and the lady is knocking on my Teams account, saying, "Where are you?" Uh,
that's what happens when you are discussing things you're passionate about. Let's close things off here. I really enjoyed talking to you, Martin. I think we've discussed a lot of things that are very relevant. I hope the listener or the viewer has learned something from it. When it comes to whether it's field service, whether it's the things that you do at Gomocha, whether it's about building businesses, where can people find you?
Definitely. My email address, mknook@gomocha.com. Go to our website, www.gomocha.com. If you're a potential user of field service mobility platform, try us out. We have free trials. Our onboarding team is waiting for you to help you and guide you through that digital transformation. And of course, I like LinkedIn. I spend daily time on LinkedIn, connecting with people, chatting with people, talking, mailing, messaging. So check out my LinkedIn profile. And I'm very responsive on all those messages. But give
Perfect.
me an interesting topic, please. So
That's where it all starts.
that's where it starts. Yeah.
Definitely. I will make sure that those links are in the description so people can
Thank you.
find you easily. I really enjoyed the conversation, Martin. Maybe let's do another one in the future with an
Yeah.
interesting topic, because that's where it all starts. And I want to thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for the great questions, Jasper, and we stay in touch.
Definitely.
Bye, everyone.